Hello everyone! I have a pretty cool device to show you in today's video, but where is it? Well, it's actually right here. It's a watch. Let's get it off my wrist and onto the table so we can have a look at it. This is a Casio model A168W digital watch. This is a currently produced modern digital watch that you can go into Walmart in the United States and buy for about $20 American, and that's where I got this one. You can also buy these online. They're plentiful on eBay and Amazon for about the same price, give or take. I've wanted this particular watch for actually a long time, a couple of years, basically since I first knew it existed. This is one of the famous Casio watches that are really well known and have a really loyal following because they're either retro styled, classic styled watch, which you can obviously see here, or they are literally a classic watch that has been in continuous production for many years. Casio has a couple of said watches. This watch is a derivative of the famous Casio model F91W digital watch. It's, I think, the cheapest watch that Casio makes. And it's just a basic black plastic watch, and it's been in continuous production since 1991. And this watch is very closely related to that one. There's a couple other watches that Casio sells that are related to that one. So I've been wanting one of these for a long time, but I never really bit the bullet because I already have a watch that I really love, my LED watch that I've been wearing for 7 years. And 20 bucks, it's a bit of money, and where I already have a watch that I wear all the time, I just wasn't compelled to spend the money for it. And then finally, about 3 weeks ago, I was over across the border, saw this in a Walmart and said, you know what, I'm gonna get it. And the justification I made for that is because the watch I was currently wearing, here it is, my LED watch, still working just fine. But back in April, during one of my exams in school, it was actually kind of funny. I went to check the date just to confirm the date, and I discovered, ta-da, my date button was suddenly gone. I am guessing what happened was, while I was putting my jacket on, the date button got snagged on my jacket, and it finally broke off. Where this watch is quite big and quite thick and the buttons stick out quite far, they always got snagged on the sleeve of whatever article of clothing I was trying to put on or take off when I was wearing it. So yeah, I saw it coming. It finally happened. Date button broke off. Kind of funny, but oh well. I kept wearing it until I bought this watch because the time still works, obviously. But yeah, it's too bad. This watch lasted a good long time though before something broke on it. I got it in 2011, I think. 2010, Christmas of 2010. So, almost 7 years this thing lasted, which is pretty good. $80, specialty watch, China built. You don't know what the quality of these things are going to be like, but it turns out this actually served me really well. The modules were crap. It's on its 4th module, because the very right-hand digit keeps burning out. But other than that, it's been totally fine. So I'll keep it around. But that's what prompted me to finally decide and get another watch. And having worn an LED watch for 7 years, and it's very different than wearing a normal watch because you got to press a button to see the time. And I thought, geez, and of course it looks so different as well. And I love LED watches. I adore them. And I was like, geez, am I actually gonna like going back to an ordinary LCD digital watch? Well, it turns out not only is the answer is yes, but I adore it. I've actually missed having an LCD display watch because, first of all, you don't have to press anything to see the time, which is really handy when I need to look at the time while I'm carrying groceries or whatever. Just a flick of the wrist and there it is. Second of all, I can see it outside. You cannot see, where is it? You cannot see that outside. You probably can with the new modules that the guy who sells these uses in them now. He doesn't use the old-fashioned wire bond LED displays anymore because they were very unreliable, as I've demonstrated. He uses a modern display module now, and they're very, very bright. Those ones you can see in the sun, but this one and the other ones with the old style displays, you can't see them outside. So that's the second reason I really like this. And then the third reason is you got the time and the date on the display simultaneously, including the day of the week. And I really love that. So yeah, I've really enjoyed going back to an LCD display based watch. I'm really loving this watch. So let's take a look at this watch. Now, as I said, this is a derivative of the famous Casio F91W, a watch which has been in continuous production since 1991. And not only is it a famous watch, it's a very infamous watch because it's now a terrorist sign. I'm not kidding. It turns out that Casio F91Ws, I don't know if they still are, but they were at one point popular with terrorists who would modify them and be able to electronically connect them to a bomb to use them as the detonator, a time detonator for that bomb. And apparently they were commonly seen on bombs enough that apparently now in the United States, if you meet the wrong authority at the wrong time and you're wearing a Casio F91W, you will get probed solely because of it, which is too bad. It's a cheap watch from Casio. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they're so common to buy. I think it shouldn't be so panic-inducing to see one, just because they're already so common and easy to buy. But anyway, this watch is a sister model of that. Obviously not black plastic. This is a bit of a higher-end model. The strap here is metal. And one of the unfortunate things about this watch is you can see the case here. The case looks like metal, obviously. It's not. It's plastic coated with a thin layer of chrome. It's chrome plated plastic. So eventually, if you're rough enough on one of these, and I'm sure this will be happening to this one eventually, you scratch the chrome off and white colored plastic shines through, which is too bad. But the reason these classic Casio watches have such a loyal following is because they're just perfect in every way. They're super reliable. These go forever. These just don't break. At least the modules just don't break. These things run forever. Great battery life. Casio claims a 7-year battery life. It's kind of dumb. When you buy one of these watches, Casio ships these with a subpar battery on purpose because it's a cheap battery that they source from somewhere else, and they actually state in the manual that the battery that the watch ships with will last about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and then replacement batteries that are from a reputable manufacturer, they'll last 7 years. But people don't read this. People don't RTFM. And sometimes when you look at these watches, you see a 1-star review because someone's like, the manual said a 7-year warranty and my watch died in 2 years. And it's like, well, yeah, it says that right in the manual. Anyway, people can't read. People can't read. Anyway, but that's another great thing about these. They do have a really long battery life once you have an aftermarket battery in them. And they're just super reliable, and they look really cool. It's just a really cool looking watch, indeed, inspired by the 1980s. All these watches that Casio makes, the F91W, another one is the F105W, I think, which is like the F91W, but it has an electroluminescent backlight instead of an LED backlight. And then this watch actually has a sister model similar to it. This watch is the A168W. This watch has a sister model, the A158W, which is similarly styled, but it has an LED backlight instead of the electroluminescent backlight. This one has the electroluminescent backlight. And all those watches, they look awesome. They are indeed inspired by the 1980s, watches of the 1980s. But unfortunately, while it's well known that the F91W has been in continuous production since 1991, nobody knows when these other models of watches, when they were introduced. I've tried researching it myself and I can't come to a conclusion. The best info I've found so far is I went on old versions of Casio's website using the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, and these were first added to Casio's website in 2000, so this particular watch has been in production since at least 2000. But at that time, when you look at those old versions of Casio's website, you don't even see the F91W, which was in production at the time, so Casio was just lazy adding their products to their website, which was obviously a juvenile website at the time. So it's still not known if these were actually being made before 2000, but we do know these were made at least as early as 2000. Something interesting, I asked about this on Reddit, Reddit r watches. I said, does anybody know when the Casio A158W or A168W were introduced? And one person came back, he said no, but I do have this 1984 Casio catalog that lists a watch sort of like the A158W called the A152W. So that was really cool to see. So it's likely that the A152W was a predecessor to the A158W. I would say probably the biggest difference was it had an incandescent backlight, whereas the A158W has an LED backlight. Casio's early digital watches all had an incandescent backlight. It was common on early LCD digital watches. So yeah, all in all, it's not really known when these were introduced. It was at least as early as 2000, but these were possibly introduced as early as the perhaps the mid 80s or the late 80s, but nobody knows. But regardless, the watch fits the part. It looks like something out of the 80s. And a lot of people like these because if you just look at the face of this watch, look at all the advertisements, the color printing that it's got on the face. For what's supposed to be a dress watch, it's so gaudy on the face, but a lot of people love that. It's another reason these watches are so loved. Just all the needless advertisements that are on the face of the watch. Alarm chrono, electroluminescence, illuminator, water resist. It's so out of place. It totally ruins the look of what's supposed to be a dress watch, and this is marketed as a dress watch, but it's really cool at the same time because it's just so retro. I think the A158W actually sells better than the A168W because the face of it is a bit more modest. You still got your advertisements, the water resist and the illuminator and stuff like that on the A158W, but it's toned down a bit. The colors are a bit darker and it overall looks nicer. I will say the A158W has a much nicer looking face, but I always wanted the A168W because of the electroluminescent backlight. I own another Casio watch, a Casio DB36. It's sort of a halfways databank watch. It's marketed as a databank watch, but it doesn't have the fancy features like a calculator or anything. But that watch has an LED backlight, and it just sucks. And everything I've read everyone's opinion I've read is the same as mine. Casio's watches with an LED backlight just stink. They're not very good. They're hard to see by. But the electroluminescent backlit watches are excellent. The EL backlight is excellent, and that's why I wanted this watch instead of the A158W, even though the A158W is a nicer looking watch. And I got to wondering, a couple of people have said that the A168W has a thicker case than the A158W, and one person suggested this is because the EL backlight makes the display thicker. But when I look online, I find inconsistent information regarding if the A168W is indeed thicker than the A158W. because I go to different websites, they give different dimensions, literally. I don't know what's wrong with people, they can't decide what the dimensions are. But something I'd like to find out is if an A168W module will fit in an A158W. I've almost been tempted to buy an A158W so that I can see if I can swap the modules. Because if it turns out you can put an A150 or an A168W in the A158 case, that would be the perfect Casio watch. A nice, unobtrusive, nice looking face, but with the electroluminescent backlight. That would be the ideal Casio watch. And someone should find that out. If anybody has an A158W, doesn't even have to be working, can be hard shape, whatever, that they want to donate, I would test that. But yeah, that's something I'd really like to find out. So anyway, that's a little bit of detail about that. So regarding the comfort of the watch and the size of the watch, you know, again, I've been used to my LED watch here, and if you look at it, the LED watch has quite a bit larger face, and it's quite a bit thicker. And again, I thought, geez, you know, am I gonna like, am I gonna be okay with the smaller, thinner face, or is it just not gonna feel right to me? Because something I've never been a fan of is women's watches. I've never really liked women's watches, even now. I always like men's watches. So I wasn't sure if this watch would be too small for my liking. Well, again, not only am I just fine with it, I'm actually really enjoying it. The watch it's so nice to have a less obtrusive watch. In fact, you know, this watch, I've never worn at night because it's too uncomfortable. You lie down in bed, it's so big that it catches on, you know, your sheets and stuff, and I've never worn this at night. This watch I wear 24/7. It's that comfortable to wear. It's so much more comfortable to wear than that one. I love it so much, and I think the size of the watch face, it's just perfect. It's fine. Yeah, this is super comfortable. I actually wear it 24/7, and I'm really loving it because something I've always hated doing is, you know, I have an alarm clock. I use a regular old-fashioned alarm clock in my bedroom, and it wakes me up in the morning. But if I wake up in the night and I need to check the time, I've got to crane my head literally 270 degrees so I can see my alarm clock. But now that I'm wearing a watch in bed at night, I can just look at my watch and there it is. And it's just beautiful. I love it. I really like it a lot. And yeah, I'm totally loving this watch. I'm actually really enjoying the switch from an LED watch back to a good old LCD watch. The band is likewise very, very comfortable. Now, as you can see here, the LED watch has a super thick, very wide and very thick metal band, and that again makes it really obtrusive because, you know, if I'm working, I'm at a table doing something, or I'm on the computer or whatever, this is just constantly scratching against everything. In fact, something I always did last summer at work when I was still wearing this watch, when I got to work, I would just take it right off and put it on the desk, and I wouldn't put it back on until I was ready to leave work and go home. That was something I always did with this watch. But with the Casio here, it's just so comfortable to wear and so unobtrusive to wear. I wear it 24/7, like I said. I don't take it off at work. And I don't take it off in bed. It's really nice. There is one thing about this watch, this is pretty much any watch with a metal band. When you get sweaty, the band sort of starts sticking to you, and the watch, even though I have this watch set pretty darn loose on my wrist, if, for example, on the walk to work or the walk home, by the time I get to work or home and my wrist is sweaty, the watch feels really tight, so I actually do take it off until I cool down, and then I put it back on. So that's just the one thing with that. But yeah, overall it's really comfortable. It's with the thinner, very thin and narrow band. It's more comfortable on the wrist than my old watch here. And something else is, of course, I don't have arm hair anymore, but back when I had arm hair, this would occasionally grab on your arm hair, the space between the links there. When you moved your wrist, they'd grab on the hair and pull on it. It was kind of uncomfortable. I don't know. Obviously I can't find out anymore if this is any better, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Another really wonderful thing about this watch is, despite being a metal band, and you know, a lot of watches with metal bands are very hard to adjust to the right size. These watches are super easy to adjust. All you do is, and there's actually a nice video tutorial on YouTube, you basically just stick something like a small flat-bladed screwdriver in where that arrow is pointing, and you pry up on it to open that latch, and then this part just slides up and down, and then you just press the latch closed, and there it is, your band is adjusted. And likewise, it's very easy to put the watch on and take it off. This watch, easy enough to put on and take off, but it takes so much time and energy to adjust. Adjusting this watch has always been horrible. How you have to adjust this is, each link in the band is held in with these pins, and you've got to take a hammer and really carefully knock a pin out, and actually you've got to knock two of the pins out, and then take out one link, and then attach the two outer links and hammer a pin back in, probably bending and breaking your pins because it's super hard to do. It's awful. Adjusting this watch has always been awful. It's really easy on this one. It's very nice. And I'll put it on here just to show you how easily it goes on. Actually, it's hard to do up in the air here. Normally, yeah, you'd have to do it on the table. See if I can do it on the table here to show you. So the little hook there goes like that, and then just snaps right on. And then taking it off, just like that. Super easy, I love it. Now, let's actually look at the watch itself. So, this watch has the Casio number 3298 module. I think it's the same module used in the F105W, which is a cheaper black plastic watch. So this is basically the fancier metal version of the F105W. So we can look at the light here, and it's very nice. Very, very nice electroluminescent backlight. It's far brighter on camera than it is to the eye, but it's plenty bright. And as a matter of fact, when you're in a pitch black room and you light this up, this will light up the room. You can mostly see the detail of the room by the backlight on this thing. It's not a timed backlight. It only stays on for as long as you press it, but that's fine. And of course you got the time, the day of the week, and the day of the month here, which is really great. And if I press the start-stop button right here, it switches to 24-hour mode. This indicator at the very top left is the alarm indicator, so I currently have the alarm turned on. I have a 7 o'clock alarm to wake me up in the morning. This is nicer to wake up to than my alarm clock. And let's go through the different modes here. There's where you set your alarm, and if I press, I think it's the start-stop button. Yeah, so there, that little bell there, that's the hourly chime. Yeah, we won't demonstrate it here. That's the hourly chime. And then now with the alarm and the hourly chimes on, now they're off, and just the alarm's back on. And if I press the light button, that's how you get it into the set mode. Next, well, because I did an action in the alarm mode, it automatically goes back to the time mode when you hit the mode button. That's a nice feature. But we cycle through again, and now we have the stopwatch. It's got a 1 hour capacity. And you press the light button, and it resets. And if I cycle through the modes without using any of the other modes, now we get into the time set mode. So there's that. It's very nice, very enjoyable to use overall. This watch is, I now see why these watches have such a cult following. They're literally perfect in every way. They're affordable, very reliable, great battery life, And the design, both physical and electronic, is just perfect. There's literally nothing wrong with these. They are the world's most perfect watch. Look at the detail of the back here. There's a Casio 3298 A168, stainless steel back, water resistant. These are made in China. And there you go. The strap can be removed if it ever had to be replaced. A popular modification to make to these is what's called a Nato strap. People put a Nato, N-A-T-O, strap on this. I'm not sure why it's called a Nato strap or who makes it. I don't know if it actually has to do with NATO, you know, the NATO Donald Trump hates. But it's a nylon strap, and apparently they're really popular to put on watches. So even a fancy metal dress watch like this, it's popular to put, you know, a rough and tumble nylon NATO strap on it, which I think is kind of funny. Something I just thought to mention while I'm editing the video, 2 weeks ago I set this watch, I calibrated it exactly to the NIST clock, the clock in Boulder, Colorado. You can go to time.gov on the internet and see the exact time in any time zone served by that atomic clock. Casio specifies pretty much all their watches to be accurate to plus or minus 30 seconds per month. So let's see how far this has deviated after 2 weeks. I've got the website up here. There is the exact time, accurate to the second. Actually, it's the actual clock itself is accurate to like millionths or billionths of a second, but I don't know if there's any kind of lag that might throw this reading off. I don't know, but we'll treat it as exact. And it looks like it's just slightly more than 2 seconds slow, which would come to less than 5 seconds a month. A far cry from the specified 30. That's pretty darn good. There you go. I think that's just about all there is to show of my new watch, the Casio A168W. Really, really nice watch. I'm so glad I bought this. You know, I was a little bit cautious, you know, going from a big burly LED watch. I wasn't sure if I would like this. Well, I'm loving it. I'm really, really loving it. And I'll probably just wear this permanently from now on. This does get me wanting to try a couple other watches. There's a watch Timex makes that's pretty much equivalent to this. It's a metal watch with basic features that has an electroluminescent backlight, and it's about $30. I'd like to get one, but I'm really not in a position where I should be spending excess money right now. But that's another watch I'd like to try someday, and if I do get one, I'll do a direct comparison between that watch and this one, since they're pretty much direct market competitors. And I'd like to find out if you can put the 3298 module in an A158W, because that's a nicer looking watch, and if you can get that module in it, then you have a nicer looking watch that still has an EL backlight, which would be really nice. But anyway, regardless, I just love this watch. I would recommend it to anybody. It's really great. And I don't think I showed there on the clasp. It's actually got Casio stamped into it, which I think is very nice. So there you go, folks. That's about all there is to show about this. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. And I will see you later.